Can I get a little countdown, gentlemen?
20, 35 to 0.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Pixel Pusher podcast. My name is Dylan Abernethy. I'm here along with my co-host and good buddy Ryan Levac. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey guys.
Awesome, that's great. Off to a great start here. And with us as well, we have an awesome guest, our good pal and friend Charlie Foreman. Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Oh man, but you just introduced me. You just said who I was.
Give us your full title, your full everything, the grand opening.
All right, y'all. Hi, all the viewers and listeners. I'm Charlie Foreman. I just started at Naughty Dog a month ago. I'm an associate texture artist. I previously went to Savannah College of Art and Design, where I graduated in 2018, and then I went back home for a little bit, and I'm from the Chicago area, and now I live in Santa Monica working on video games, and I like materials.
A very special video game, eh?
Yeah. I'm actually not sure if I'm allowed to say what it is, even though literally it's in the public face, and everyone knows oh, they're making Last of Us 2, but I'm not supposed to say if I'm on it or not. But
well, should we figure this out right now?
No, I'm too lazy.
All right.
But yeah, it's implied.
I mean, that's super awesome. I think everyone's gonna agree that that's a massive thing to have under your belt, especially as your first title, right?
Yeah, it's my very first gig, first game, first studio, first everything.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one of the main things we wanted to dive in and chat about because well, I mean, we just finished up school, Ryan and I, right? So A lot of people came out, and I mean, we're in a good position where we're talking with a lot of companies and studios, and we've been pretty fortunate in that sense, but there's a lot of other people who kind of aren't having as many connections pop up right away, and we know that your story is a bit more you were on the grind for a solid year, right?
Yeah. I left school, and I kind of really had to make a choice to basically purge my whole school portfolio. But that was because of a pivot in career choice. And so I just kind of had two options in front of me. I could either grind for a long time, or I could kind of give up and just try to go with what I did have from school. And I chose the first option, which definitely paid off. Should I go with the whole story, I guess, or in the first part of it?
I mean, if you want to sort of give us the whole, I mean, we could start even before, why did you get into this? Why did you go to school for all this kind of stuff? And then we'll transition into what happened after school. Because I'm curious, man. I'm curious how you ended up going down this route in general.
Yeah, for sure. So I've wanted to be in games since I was about 11. Shout outs to my mom. She's no longer with us, unfortunately, but she supported me every step of the way. She sent me to ID Tech camps when I was 11. It's a summer camp where you get taught Maya, programming, game design, and even robotics. I went there as a camper for 8 years, and I was wow, I really like this stuff. I learned how to do a little modeling. I did stuff in Warcraft script editor, map making. There's some stuff in UDK. There's a whole hodgepodge of stuff. And it was cool getting to interact with people who were studying the same thing in college, and other kids attending the camp who also love video games, because where I grew up, there weren't really many people that were super into games and the kind of geeky stuff. So that was really cool. And again, my mom did a lot of the work finding what school would be best for me. I think that plays into my story a bit too, is I feel I didn't really do a lot of my own work in life. I was just kind of scooting by in high school. I was a BEC student. I didn't really care about really anything. I only really cared about video games. I was originally going to be a game designer, because I really liked how broken down you could take these levels and various platformers, because some of these are very precise. I think Super Meat Boy is a really good example, and Celeste more recently, of wow, these are individual tiny screens. There's so much packed into them. And of course, I loved League of Legends at the time in high school, and I was super into it. Yeah, definitely not as much as I was interested in how it was the only live game I ever played, because I never played WoW or any FPSs that got content updates or whatever. So that was my only experience with live games, and I thought that was really interesting. So I ended up going to SCAD. Again, mom's help. She helped like find me someone who could like tell me about like a portfolio and what I had to submit. And I got in, and then I kind of like the first year spent my time doing foundations. And then in school, I felt like it was definitely the right place for me. I often wonder, like I always joke, maybe I should have went to Champlain, which is in Vermont, or Ringling. But when I graduated, well, I guess I'm getting ahead of one part. I did decide to pivot my junior year, so really, really late. So this was about 2 years ago, to environment art. Mainly, and it's a really stupid reason, my portfolio for environment art was quote unquote better because I had more art classes because I went to an art school, and my game design portfolio was a board game and 2 really lackluster programmed projects that I was on for classes. And I was like, these aren't going to get me a job. This isn't going to cut it. So I was like, art is visual. People can see art. And I have like a specific like, for like art, I used to not care really that much because I'm still of the philosophy that even as an artist now, that no matter how good a game's art is, if it's not a fun game, I won't play it, because that's just unfortunately like how it is. There's a lot of games now, even if I don't like the art, I will like the game if it's fun. Like Minecraft and like Terraria don't have like spectacular art, but like they get me addicted because they have just these repetitive cycles that you can like get trapped in, and then before you know it, 7 hours are up. But that gives you a hint of what I play now. But yeah, so senior year I spent all my time doing art, which I'm very glad I did, because I could get all like this learning like out of the way. But I would say when I graduated, I was like, wow, I have a long ways to go. I had attended GDC for the first time 3 months before I graduated. So that was last March, as of the time of this recording, which is May 29, 2009.
2009, yeah.
2009.
Wow,
way back in the day. I'm old.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so when I went there, I saw like the level that like people were like really serious. I felt really scared to like walk up to literally anyone, because my portfolio was trash. I was like, wow, I'm gonna like get a job. I'm gonna walk up to someone and show them my crappy portfolio. I did go to the killer portfolio reviews, Killer Be Killed. I think that's what the second part they call it. I was picked apart during it, and I was really grateful for it because I realized in my school that people are really soft. Like people, it all depends depending on the class. Because some art schools and some classes could like have people that are more passionate than others, and like we have like good critiques at my institution. I thought that a lot of them were really good. But there were some people that like just were telling me like, yeah, this works good. And I think that's just like generally the problem with art school is you're naturally in a competitive bubble. So more students, 95% of the time, I'd say, are going to be comparing themselves to each other and not the competition out there. I see it on social media all the time, people saying stuff like that. There was a really good Twitter thread by Beck Halstead. I'd recommend finding that thread at some point. Maybe I'll have Dylan link it in the description.
Yeah,
where they talk
we'll
about
have a whole series of links. We'll keep them down there.
Yeah, so definitely they were talking about the level that's expected to get into the industry that schools don't teach. And that was a really interesting thread, which had a ton of different people posting their artwork, including myself. Since I was so fresh, I naturally jumped on there. I was like, wow, I've been in the industry for 3 weeks. Here's my portfolio, literally from the day I graduated to now. Every project is in there. So now I can use that as a benchmark too if I ever go back to it. I was like, wow, this was what was expected of me to get into a AAA studio. And I could say, it was right out of college because it was 10 months. But there was a lot of changes that I had to go through between that last day of class when I walked out 3 months before I was at GDC getting roasted. And, oh, man. Well, I met a lot of really awesome people at GDC.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you kind of have to be sort of like blasted, and like if you go up to someone and they just tear it apart, like if you have the mentality that that's a bad thing, like, yeah, it kind of sucks because you put hours and hours and hours into it. But for me, it's like every time someone has shredded my thing apart, or my portfolio rather, it's like those are typically the best experiences because they sort of just point out what you can fix, and it's always something doable, and it's something that you wouldn't recognize on your own. So
Yeah, and also I feel like even if you don't get any, sorry, if you don't have much experience and you're afraid of people ripping you apart, you have to realize that even the professionals get ripped apart all the time.
oh yeah.
It's a part of art itself.
Yeah, there's even more pressure on them because they're expected to produce at a high level. Actually, as of the day we're recording this, Death came out, and I saw a Twitter thread again of a comprehensive breakdown of like every single like shot of this Death Stranding trailer, like art wise. And I saw one guy replied, "Oh my God, like I love this game, but I hate that this is the standard we've set for AAA because it's now feels like, at least to him, I guess it felt like a realism arms race. And the players don't appreciate like this kind of hard work. Like people just like rip on the game. And like Death Stranding has obviously some amazing tech like in it, like the shaders that they're using for some of the characters and the lighting and the fabric rendering, the animation, like it's all insane. And this is stuff that like most people wouldn't even like realize like on a surface level. Even some people like in the industry, probably like more juniors like me, because I would have never noticed stuff. I just would be like, wow, this looks really good. I would never notice this one little artifact like of a skin shader unless it was pointed out. Like it was a really good thread. I was reading it for like an hour during my lunch.
Yeah, you're talking about like the 8-minute trailer that dropped today, right?
Yeah. It's interesting stuff. I guess speaking of shaders, probably that's what I do. So I should talk a little about that because that was what got me hired.
Totally, yeah. Because like, I mean, you touched on it before, but it's like when we started talking, I'm pretty sure this was when you just got out of college or university. So I remember seeing a lot of
July. I think it was July or August.
Yeah, because I saw a bunch of your environments on your art station. I remember I was looking at that stuff, which have all been wiped off since then.
Yeah, I have one. Yeah, that's when we started talking. We started October because it was the Field Japan Challenge.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I had 3 more environments in my portfolio. My portfolio at the time has one environment on it, which I haven't removed because no one said it hurts me. But now I'll definitely purge it, like whenever I can get this title on with like an art drop, because you're constantly purging work. I have a lot of purge work in my portfolios. Before I like go in depth, I definitely recommend to anyone listening, you should definitely not be afraid to get rid of old work because you will make better work. Like it's fine like to keep like old projects for nostalgia if like you already have a job. Because like I'm probably just gonna keep this like train model I have just because it reminds me of my hometown and it's an okay model. But I definitely could do much better. So I'd only replace it, I think, if I literally made an updated version of it. But don't be afraid of purging work. I think that was something in school that wasn't really pushed as much. I went to a professor about purging my senior projects, and he was not very happy with me saying that. And I was like, well, I don't think it's that good. And he told me, well, you're gonna have to work a lot in your portfolio. And I said, I will. And then I did. So I definitely understand like why he told me, because like he knew like it's a big part of my portfolio, because my senior project is obviously what we just spent 6 months of school on. And like, wow, it's like about to be done and you're not going to like keep it. And I was like, yeah. And I ended up purging it in October actually. Cause after a few portfolio reviews. So yeah, my portfolio is mostly shader balls. I should stop saying shader balls. They're not. They're material balls I made in some designer, but I make shaders at work.
Yeah,
I guess. Well, no, they're different. The shaders are real time, and materials make up shaders, and textures make up materials.
Okay, got me there, man.
I'm probably triggering so many people because I sound.
Well, I mean, it's just facts.
So while we're on the topic of designer, what exactly got you into it?
Yeah, so at that GDC, that first GDC, I don't remember why I went to this talk. I had downloaded Substance Designer because I had a student license. We didn't have designer taught at school. I learned it on my own. So this was March last year. I went to Daniel Tiger's talk that he gave last year. It was actually the first signature series that dropped on Substance Source. It was the Biome Project. He did snow, jungle, and desert. And I didn't really know what any of like this meant. So like the first 5 minutes of the talk when Wes was bringing like Daniel on, I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, this is cool looking. So I think I went because I was with my buddy. Oh, and because he was the lead environmentalist at Bungie. And my buddy loved Destiny, so that's why I went, because I was like, oh, this is a talk I can go to with you, and I just started this program. Maybe I'll learn something. I don't think I'd ever been more awake during like a talk in my life. It's on YouTube now, and it's like an excellent talk. He breaks down like one of the materials. Basically, it was just all about how he used 3D scans as reference, the inferior sort of textures. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I'm making fun personal jabs here.
I'm making fun of Dylan because he like scans more than creating procedurals. And
I don't like scans. I think procedural materials are way more impressive. They're way more useful and they look better. But scans are like, for someone more like practical. Me. Yeah, if I'm focusing on prop work and stuff and I want to quickly like mimic something, right? It's like, you can get it done in a day. I don't need to make a million node system over here.
Yeah, but I walked out of that talk. I would later learn that I'm an idiot, and Josh Lynch's talk about using multi-switch to get variation and that he did on Shadow of War. I watched that talk later, but I definitely wish I had went, and I definitely wish I could have gone up to Tiger and shaken his hand because I didn't realize how much that talk would impact my life. I went home after GDC, and I made the worst stylized bricks. They look like clay globs blobbing into each other. And then I rendered them in Marmoset on a turntable, and I posted them on my Facebook. I was so proud of myself. I was giggling because they had no lighting. They were flat as hell, and they were on a rounded cube. Oh my god! Look, we all start somewhere.
Do you have a copy of this? I think you got to put it up on screen now.
Yeah, I think we need to.
I will.
The description for
I will get an image so you can edit it on. They're probably somewhere. But yeah, so after that, I went home after graduation, and I had a summer job. So I was slowly working on redoing it. And I was like making some stylized like materials. They were getting better. I actually did make 2 that weren't bad. I made like an okay-ish lava that maybe could have gone in Warcraft if the bar was much, much, much lower. But like it looked like something at least.
Are we talking about Vanilla WoW or?
I don't know, man. But yeah, so I made a few stylized ones, but I didn't really like see the point in making more stylized ones because I was like, well, I went and I talked to some alumni from my school, and I asked like what they use at Riot and Blizzard, and they told me at the time Endo and like 3D Coat, and I was like basically in my head I'm like, well, they need like actual like painters and like people who can paint these textures. And I spent like a week trying to do that, and I was like, okay, I think I'm just gonna stick with designer. So I made a bunch of really cruddy materials. They were a little better, but they were like in the Uncanny Valley range. So at the time, I had like didn't really know what to do. I was kind of in this like weird sort of man's land where I was like I was starting this environment for the Fuel Japan Challenge, which is when I met Dylan, and then conversely Ryan. And then I was like, man, I'm like just not improving like fast enough. I'm like 4 or 5 months out of school, and I still don't feel like I'm there. And then one day I was going to a holiday, but before I did, I just threw together these wood chips in Designer, and I posted them on my ArtStation, and they got like 30 likes. And I was like, what? 30 likes? That's nothing. But I was shocked because that was more than all 3 of the environments I had. and I actually had fun making them. So I went home, and then I did another material. And then the third I did was these rail tracks that I still have up. And those like got over 50 at the time. And I was like, wow, okay, I like doing these. They're fun. So I got like really obsessed with Designer. Like I started like going to sleep really late like I did at school. I was like looking up every single video I could. I was buying a ton of tutorials. I was able to do this because like I was living with my parents, my dad at the time. And like he didn't make me get a part-time job after my summer job was over. So I'm really grateful for that because he let me live rent-free under his roof just so I could work on my portfolio. So shout outs to my dad. But yeah, I like absorbed like as much knowledge as I kept making materials. And then I think when something really struck for me was I made this keyboard one day when I was in the library. I went to the public library. It was quieter there and I wasn't distracted by my house. And it took me like 4 hours. And I was like, wow, I'm getting pretty. So I posted it. I thought it was pretty cool, but so did apparently like a lot of people, because that was my first piece to hit 100 likes. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And like I'm someone who really does brand growth, but I'll talk about that later. But I was like, wow, people are actually interested in this art that I'm making. Why am I spending time making these environments that are getting no traction and honestly like aren't as good as these materials that I'm making? I realized I'd been trying to like spread myself too thin by trying to make like whole environments with these nice materials that I was starting to make. And I was just like, okay, let's just focus on materials, you know? So I made a few more. I made this DS for fun. But then one day, one of my friends messaged me and I was like, hey, isn't posted the Substance Instagram? I was like, oh, cool. That's my DS. And that was when I realized, oh, crap, maybe I can do this. I mean, I know they share a lot of things like each day. So it's not like a super big deal. Like now in context, knowing what I know, that like that happened, but that gave me at the time like a huge confidence surge.
Well, I'll say, like, I'm just gonna jump in for a second. That DS, like that was probably the first thing I saw from you where I'm just like, holy, like this guy here he's the real deal, right? Because when I first clicked on it or I saw the thumbnail or whatever, I'm like, oh, that's a really cool 3D model.
You're not the only one.
Yeah,
2 portfolio reviews thought it was a.
Like, it's insane. Like, even if it was a model, it would look good. But the fact that it was just a material is just like, okay, you're clearly having fun with it. You're creative, and the execution is on point. So,
yeah. So basically, I just kept doing. I kept doing more balls. I did debate because I was talking with some more alumni during this whole time. By the way, I was emailing specifically. I was looking for alumni from my school. From SCAD, because that's one of the upsides of going to SCAD is they like have one of the like probably farthest reaching groups of like alumni in like games, VFX, and animation. So it's really easy to network within the school. I was just asking people for like their stories. I wasn't asking them. I was asking like, you know, I did recently graduate, so obviously I'm looking for a job, but I want to know like how you found your job. I would never ask if like their company was hiring in the first email. I probably was at the start. But I want to get to know these people, because like when you're looking to like make connections, you're not just doing it to job. I'm doing it because I like making friends. Like I remember like Dylan, I met you because I messaged you and I was like, hey, you're in the Dynasty YouTube videos. You taught me how to UV in Maya because I was a scrub and I used Hedis, which is actually still an amazing program. My laptop just won't work with it for some reason now, so I just don't use it anymore, but it's a good program. But like you actually are interested. Yeah, like it's all about like just, you know, be honest with these people. Like you're looking for a job, but like you want to like come off in like a meaningful way, you know? These people aren't like just stepping stones. They're like actual people who have done this before. And I like appreciate that with every one of them. Yeah. One of my friends from GDC introduced me to my then it was still kind of is mentor, who like gave me feedback. Like whenever I had anything I like felt I needed like direct one-on-one contact with, I would just DM it to him over Google Hangouts, be like, how's this look? And he would tell me it looks like shit or it looks good. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, like, we are so fortunate that, like, in this industry, it's, like, genuinely everyone kind of just wants to help everyone. Like, you go on ArtStation, for example, and it's, like, the only social media I can name. I mean, I guess it goes with the nature of it, but, like, where everyone helps each other, you don't ever see any trolls or anything like that. It's just like, hey, how did you do that? Can you do a breakdown, or can I message you about it? And 9 times out of 10, the people say yes. Like, Ryan, for example, I mean, you just had a mentorship a while ago, and now the guy that you learned under, you're good buddies with, right?
Yeah, it was without a doubt one of the best experiences of my learning career, I guess, for environment art and game art, I guess, as a whole. Definitely getting to know somebody that's in the industry, because you just learn so much, like, off of them, I guess. Like, not to say like leeching off of them, but pretty much leeching off of them. You don't want to. It's not a bad thing in any way, because they truthfully want to see you succeed, and if you can take that and then spread it with others and make yourself better, it's just good for the what's the word? Good for the community as a whole.
Yeah. In a sense, it's like you're already in a position where you can help, and if you help them out, it's like, one, you're good friends, and two, who knows what happens in the future? Maybe you'll work together, and it's kind of like a I scratch your back, you scratch mine sort of situation.
I did a mentorship as well. I did a mentorship, not from the same place you did, Ryan, but that was definitely also really helpful. Like, actually, I think I started that around December, so the timeline, like I was just making materials, but I did think I need an environment. After talking to some people, I'm like, I need one environment to like really make it come together. That environment is still not on my portfolio, but that mentorship helped me a lot on my art test for Naughty Dog, because like things in my head that I learned, like just about like how to work faster, how to work efficiently, I could use like, you know, for my art tests, because that was like my only art test I've ever done. And I'd say the mentorship was like a really big part of that. So it's cool. Like when you find these people who do like these things, you know, that kind of gives you like their unique perspective too, because everyone also teaches and learns differently. But at the end of the mentorship, we're really close. I did need to start. I really did need to start like looking for like a job, because I them where I was posting substance material like every week or two, and at that point, GDC had swung around, and basically it had already been a year. I was there. I was.
Oh,
so I could go to that talk.
Sorry, man, you're cutting out a little bit here.
Cut out a bit there, yeah.
Oh, maybe it's my internet. You can edit that out.
Ah.
So GDC came around that was about 2 months ago now, 3 months ago. And I ended up going again, but this time I was like so much more prepared. I knew like a lot more people, just from like emailing people, reaching out to others. I had an actual portfolio that had like, you know, gotten good like response. I'd actually had a few interviews at that point. None of them worked out, but like I knew I was hireable because they were giving me the time of day. And basically, in short, because I could talk forever, a really lucky string of events happened, and I almost got like 3 offers the same day. 2 weeks after GDC, I turned in my art tests for Naughty Dog, and then a bunch of things happened, and I did end up picking Naughty Dog because I think honestly in my head there's a lot of. But I'll go with, man, I just slaved over that test for 2 weeks, and they just gave me an offer like the day after. So I was like, okay, I've got to take this. There's no way. Like, I think everyone dreams of working at Naughty Dog. Because like I hear a lot of advice in the industry saying you have to pick like a reach studio and tailor your portfolio to that. But I'm personally, as someone who is looking for a gig, I'm not a fan of that philosophy, because what if that dream studio rejects you? Then you are kind of screwed. So I'm sure like the other thing is like so few people actually get hired. Because my portfolio wasn't centered around like any Naughty Dog game. Like a very material generalist portfolio. It's got rocks, wood, bricks, and then it's got a few random things like my keyboard, and like wood chips, I guess. But it's mostly stuff you'd expect in a material artist portfolio. I just tried to make sure like everything was clean, and the quality was like, you know, up to par, and that the renders were nice, because for a portfolio, like they didn't have to be practical if they looked nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if you think about it, if you're going for a junior sort of material artist position, the more general, the better. I would say, like, yeah, you can kind of cater it towards a studio, but your goal was more or less to find a position, right? Like you're going for a junior position, not like I'm going right for the top. I think I would argue that what you did was pretty smart. So
yeah, like I didn't expect to end up here. No way. I would have thought like I would have ended up I don't know. I guess I don't really know like where I thought I would have ended up. I've never really had a dream studio. I just wanted to work in games because they make me happy. But I also want to like be in a place where like the project I work on is like going to be remembered by everyone. And I think in school, my school was like really indie focused because we make an indie game for our senior project, which is the one I ended up cutting. Like obviously, like a lot of people want to work in indie, but I'm not a fan of the financial risk of indie. I would definitely do it. I think maybe in 10 or 15 years when I have more experience. But as someone who is about to move out of his house and have like a real job, I would like the safety of a nice paycheck, even if it's a 6-month gig or if it's a contract or like whatever. I just need that start of financial stability so I can start like building, you know, a career. And because like it's super exciting to say like you work at a AAA studio as like your first job, you know. But I like there were lots of like mental breakdowns like along the way. Like get really frustrated with myself because like I felt like I wasn't improving at first. This was like at first before like I got really into substance. I was like always telling my dad how like I like trying to find a job, and he told me you need to get a hobby. And that's something I want to bring up too, is there's definitely a lot of things that I should have done differently in my job search. Because I feel at a point in my life, I was talking to one of my buddies about it, who's been in the industry for a bit, that I really can't think of much else besides work now. I've kind of just made it so a part of my daily life that even my friends, our Discord chats, and they're talking about memes or like video games, I talk about like what I just text her, like when I come home and work in my personal projects and designer, and they're like, Charlie, you should make a texture of this window. And they're like joking about it, but I'm actually serious, like thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always walking around with Dylan, and I see something on the ground, and I'm like, hey, that would be a cool material to make. Or like you always see the wireframe of some objects in the room. Like let's say you're walking, you're in like a kitchen and you see a table, and then you're just like, how would I model that?
Yeah, like where can I stack the UVs for like an optimal material distribution? You know, it's just always there. It's always there.
Yeah, but now like I like don't really ever like want to play. Sitting on my couch right now, like set up, but I have my PS4 and my Switch right in front of me, and they have not been touched in like 3-4 weeks since I've moved here. Because when I get home, I just don't feel like playing games. I have I have like an hour or two like where I could, because like it's weird. I'd rather like go and keep my job, or like. But like, I also just need to break out of that habit. I've been trying to see like friends like every weekend and even some weekdays. But I do feel like I've grown as an artist for sure, because like I got a job, but I've regressed as a person, I find, which is kind of depressing. But
yeah, I mean, I think everyone here, since we're all students, we kind of know the feeling, because it's like when you're cramming on projects, it's like you see the improvement, but then you're also like, oh wow, I haven't left my room in like a solid week. I haven't seen the sun in a while either. I think everyone will go through that for a bit. I'm sorry to hear that, though. That kind of sucks. I do have one question though, because it seems like we're moving on to the whole like studio side of things, and just before we totally jump over that ship, I just because your situation before going over to school was so interesting. I just had like one question. Do you have any advice for people who have just come out of school and they don't really have anything lined up? Like what should they be focusing on, or anything you would ask them to avoid maybe, in this weird transition period?
Yeah. Well, there's one thing like that's different with like everyone else is like their home situation. Like everyone's home situation is different. Like I said, my dad let me come home. I had my summer job, but then he didn't make me get a part-time job. I was really close. I was starting to look for one, but that was after like 8 months of not having a job. But some people have to go home. Maybe they have medical bills to pay. Maybe they have to pay student loans. That's usually a big one, especially at my school, which is really gross that like, art school's too expensive. That's for sure. But like they need to work a part-time job, and that's going to their portfolio time. And then they don't want to work on their portfolio. Like it's hard. Like I'm like just a really energetic and like generally positive person. So I just kind of like locked on to that. And I think I also just kind of want to hear anymore. And I like just really want to like make sure all that hard work she did getting me to this point, like didn't go to waste. And that like, I could like show like, oh my God, I really, really do want to do that. But like, I did it myself. And obviously like I didn't do it myself. I had a ton of people give me advice. A ton of people give me like praise. So I would say, like I said earlier, I'd say you should focus on making a brand of yourself if you have nothing lined up. Like Dylan, you have your YouTube channel, which is an awesome base for your brand.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I know I haven't been super active since I went to college, but having that foundation, like, I've had a serious amount of people like bump into me on Discord channels or on ArtStation. It's like, oh, dude, I watched
like me.
Video X. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And it's like, I know a lot of it is super old, and I'm currently going through a revamp of all of that. But just like the thought of that, I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's helped a lot. And I was able to transition that same sort of, I don't want to say persona, but I guess we'll go with that. I transitioned that over to Twitter and ArtStation for the first little bit, but yeah, it helps a ton to sort of be able to have a very recognizable version of you across everything. So I totally agree with you there.
I actually just remembered, even though it's staring me right in the face, because I have my portfolio. I forgot, like, one of the like biggest things that I think absolutely every student should do when they're in school is try to get some kind of publication on your portfolio. I wrote an 80 level article actually this February with Kirill Tokarev, who's the guy, I think that's how you say his name. I'm sorry if I butchered it, man. He's like super cool. I met him at GDC, and I had written for him just a few weeks before. But when I published that article, well, when he published it, when I wrote it for him, my ArtStation count like ballooned. I got like 250 followers in days and like a ton of shares, like over like 700, which was like ridiculous because I browse 80 level like every. I used to browse it every day, but now I like have less time, so I don't get to. And I was like, that is like probably one of the highest shared like articles ever. I just tried to make something like really useful. So I like just had a breakdown of like the material that everyone liked, and then at GDC. Some random people were coming up to me saying they saw my keyboard or they read my article. And that like really freaked me out because I didn't have a job. So I was like, oh my God, this is weird. Cause like my name tag says my name and like, yeah, we like your keyboard or something. It was always the keyboard and the article. I guess the rest of my portfolio doesn't exist, but it helps have that one recognizable piece.
Yeah. They're very memorable pieces. Like people wouldn't remember you for, let's say, your Moss material. Like, let's say your Moss material, it's really good, but like off the top of your head, when you think Charlie, you don't think Moss material. You think, oh, he did the keyboard. Not a lot of people do keyboards, but Charlie did a keyboard.
Yeah, there's a few on ArtStation. There's actually one I thought was really good. It was like actually pretty recent too. But yeah, like definitely think a publication is. I also that's on my portfolio. Because I just don't want to clutter it with because it was on the same materials on my keyboard. So I'm like, I don't want two of the same publication on there. But you should definitely like get a publication. Post on the Rookies. They're awesome. They're open every year now, especially, and they just changed the rules. You can be on it, I believe, if you have less than a year of professional experience in the industry. So it's not limited to just students. It opens up to self-taught people, I believe. I believe that's how it works, but I was allowed to post on it even though I was 7 months out of school. So I guess that's how it works. I was like looking through those rules for so long, trying to find out if I could. So that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things as far as the Rookies goes. I've never looked into it too much myself, but it seems like it's the place to be if you're trying to get some recognition as a student.
Yeah, I definitely recommend 80 level though. Grill is really receptive. I just DM'd him asking right for him, and then he sent me a 5-question thing, and then I sent my thing back to him a few days later. 2 days later, it was published, and I was like, "Oh, cool, nice." And it helps that it was really well received. Like that was really lucky, like for sure. I'm gonna sound like every person in the industry when they ask, "How'd you get in the industry?" I got lucky, but I did really exceedingly lucky. With everything that happened to me, just a good string of events
Yeah, well, there's that saying where it's like luck is when hard work meets opportunity, right? And I mean, that's not true for everything, but I think for this situation, absolutely. Like, you put in the time, man. You put in the hard work and effort, for sure.
Yeah. So you wanted to move on to another topic?
Yes, I think it's time to finally move on to the studio life. Naughty Dog, tell us about it, man. You've been there for what, like a month and a half?
This is my 30th day. My 30th day in Santa Monica.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this is my 4th week.
Yeah, so you have a good taste for it now. You sort of, you're kind of used to it. You're no longer the newest person you said before we started, right? So
yeah, I'm now the second newest. Actually, I'm technically the second, third, because we had 2 texture artists start the day I started, so me and someone else. But yeah, it's pretty relaxing, kind of. I guess when I say it's relaxing, I can sit down and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like most of the time. Obviously, like the first week, I had no idea what the heck I was supposed to do because chicken with my head cut off, and I'm reading all this documentation and like stuff, and obviously like finding out what the project and like whatnot. But then like you kind of just get into a groove. The day's over. Most of my job so far has just been like really basic stuff. That I think a lot of people can do, but the thing is they need people with like, in general, with good eyes and like that understand like the fundamentals, and that can learn quickly. I think like with deadlines like coming up, you have to like be able to meet those deadlines. Of course, I do think that is one of the really positive things about art school. By the way, is that it does force you to meet deadlines. At SCAD, we would usually have like 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on the class, to finish a project. And that is pretty much like what it's like here. Like my first thing I was supposed to work on, I was on it for about 3, 4 weeks, and then we moved on to something else. I'm trying to like, I'm still trying to like to not to like spoil anything. Cause,
yeah,
like,
even if you do, like, I'll edit it out completely.
Yeah. NDAs are hard.
And I'll erase it from my brain, of course. Like yeah, we're not going to break any NDAs here. We're good.
I'll go to every major publishing news website ever, and I will make sure to say your name was the one that told me.
It's over.
It's all ogre. It's all ogre now. But yeah, like I'd say like it's really like kind of just rhythmic. Like if I have a question, I get up and I'm going to ask someone like my question because, in a few months, that won't be probably acceptable for me to like do that every single day because by then I should know better. So like right now I'm using like this opportunity to like ask my senior coworkers like everything that I like have on my mind. Even no matter how stupid I think it is, it will be even stupider if I'm asking that question in 4 months when I could have just asked it before, because that you're never going to learn if you don't ask questions. I also think that's like another thing. Another piece of advice I'd give students is don't be afraid to like ask questions or get up to these people. I've been helping one of my friends look for a job, and I told her she should message this guy, and she gave me a deal of excuses as to what. And so I messaged him, and I asked him a question, and then I told her to message him. And I lied that I had told him that he was to expect her message. She freaked out and messaged him, and then realized what I did, and got really mad at me. But then realized, oh, this wasn't so scary because it's not. Like these are human beings. Like they're not scary. No one's gonna rip your head off for asking a question. You're on it. Like you have a work. Like
you have to think about it. It's like this specific form of art is such like a tiny niche little thing where it's like most people when they find someone else they can talk to about it, like they're so happy to do so.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, outside of, like, my work, I just like making pretty balls. Who doesn't?
I put it, for sure.
It's true. I don't know. I like the presentation of a ball. I don't know. It looks cool. You get to see how light hits it at almost every angle. Sweet. But yeah, like, in the studio, like, I mean, I just get up twice, actually 3 times, because I get up to get water. Because like, I have such a small mug and I just need to get like big water bottles so I don't have to constantly be getting out of my chair. But it's good to get up and take breaks. I'm actually doing a lot better. I actually am healthier at the studio than I was when I worked at home because sit for 4 or 5 hours without moving. But at the studio, I'm getting up often because I need to go like to the restroom, or maybe I just need to clear my head, or I need to like just get a drink of water, or maybe I just need to get a snack, or something like that from like a vending machine. But even that is like helping me focus, because when I get down, I feel like I'm working more efficiently because I'm giving my brain like time to relax. And I think that's for me something that was really hard in school, was like focusing and like working efficiently. I'd be sitting for like 3 hours and then realize, wow, crap, what did I like do during this time? Like it's blocked out of my brain, you know? But now like I don't feel that way like when I'm at work. And then before I know it, like the day's over and I can go home. I won't be going home like this early, obviously, because that's just how it is at every studio. At some point, maybe like for different periods of time, you know. But I get to go home at a regular time. So, but like, no one forces you to stay. Like, I just work until what I need to get done for the day is, then I go home.
I'm guessing it's like flexible hours as well.
Yeah, it's flexible. I like you go in during the core hours. The rest of the time, I usually just take it out of my lunch because I don't need to eat food and go back. And I like coming in early too because I'm not a morning person, but I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. Definitely not happy I went to bed at 3 last night though.
Are you a coffee or a tea guy?
I don't drink either. This energy.
Ooh, another one. I'm not the only one.
It's all natural, man.
Neither? How do you guys function in the morning? I mean, I'm a tea guy. I'm not really a coffee guy, but like I need something.
I get up and I look at ArtStation.
Yeah. Or you just get up and then don't get up.
Yeah,
that's the only other alternative. It's one or the other, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We don't get up here. No one gets up. Everyone's glued to their seats.
Damn.
Huh. They lock you in the kennel.
Is that what it's called? Do you have any crazy Naughty Dog like secrets you can let us in on right now?
What about the potato?
What? Oh my god.
Oh, the potato?
The potato.
What's up with the potato, man?
There's a potato. It's just in the fucking corner of like one of our bathrooms, Naughty Dog. And I don't know why it's there, but I've been tweeting it every week and it's never been touched. There's also like a pink, like one of those like things you see on those kiddie plays. It's like a scarf. That's what it is. A scarf. And there's also a carrot. I think the carrot is definitely made of plastic because you can tell. But like this potato is like sitting there and I don't know why it's there.
Is no one throwing it out on purpose? It's like some kind of strange experiment.
I almost think that it's made of plastic.
Have you asked about it or
no? Because I'm afraid if I ask someone about
it'll be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like when you started tweeting out about it, I did not know the context at all. I'm just like, all right, man, cool, nice potato.
I know it just sits there.
But the progress has been fascinating, to say the least.
I'm sure.
I'm glued to my seat.
My friends back home told me that's the stupidest thing that I've ever said.
That's how I get up in the morning. Not coffee, not tea. Knowing that somewhere out there, that Charlie's Naughty Dog potato is living its life in the Naughty Dog bathroom.
God forbid. This is the worst. But no, that's really it. Like, I go in, I sit, I go and wash my mug in the kitchen. I say hi to some of my coworkers. I usually bring a protein bar to work. I eat my protein bar, and then I work until lunch, and then I eat lunch. And then I work, and I'll usually take some breaks, usually like not too long. The only times where it's slow is when I'm waiting for my for like modeling to like get me something, because we have separate departments. Well, we have like environment is just split into like modelers and texturers, so just to keep it like organized. I think a lot more studios they have dedicated texture artists en masse instead, and I think it's just because like textures and materials are like advancing such like a state right now where like people specializing in them, because there's always been texture artists. Mm-hmm. So I can't speak to that though, like because I'm too junior to really give like a fair opinion on that. But just from what I've noticed, I did see that there were less like jobs now for environment artists and a lot more jobs for like, for more technical types of people, like technical artists, and materials like are a form of tech art, like in a way, specifically in designer, when you get like into all the math equations. Like, and there's like stuff like that. Like, one of my friends just transferred from a texture position to a technical artist position. And from actually what I've been seeing on like Twitter, just when I browse, that actually seems to be a case. It's like materials and shaders and stuff. They are like, a very technical part of the pipeline. And so I see myself, maybe if I like go that route, because when you play in these node editors, you're basically like programming art.
So what you're trying to say is, like, in 2 years from now, you're going to be like a Houdini master? You're going right into the tech art?
Man, I got to download that program, don't I?
It looks insane. I was doing some work over the past, like, month at the college with one other guy, and he was trying to learn Houdini, so I kept peeking over on the side, and I'm just like,
some of my friends have told me, my roommate from college told me, like, you'd love Houdini, really. And
yeah,
he was
it looks super, super cool. It's the coding side that's intimidating. I don't know. I guess if proper tutorials come out soon, I'd love to take a stab at it. And I think you're probably the exact same, right? It's just the lack of information right now that's kind of spooky.
Well, I could say that, but I will be truthful, and I haven't. So I can't.
Oh.
I haven't really looked for.
What was that again? Sorry, you kept cutting in and out.
Oh, I haven't. I will be honest and say I haven't really looked at tutorials, so I can't say that with a straight face.
Oh my. That was the exact way it cut out that last time.
We got to fill in the blanks here.
How about now?
There we go. We're getting better. We're making progress.
Oh, man, I'm sorry you have to edit so much. No, I haven't really looked for Houdini tutorials, so I can't comment.
There's some out there, but it's definitely like few and far between. And a little pricey, because people know that if you do know it, you can milk that for quite a bit right now.
Well, I feel like Designer was at that point.
Yeah.
There were plenty of good ones.
Well, even
like
way
a while
back
ago.
in the day, like let's say like 3 years ago, was compared to Houdini now, like there wasn't any of the Daniel Tiger tutorials, which are amazing, or like there's so many of these GDC presentations that weren't around. Like, I feel like as the years go on, there will be more tutorials, and there will be, let's say, the Daniel Tiger or the Josh Lynch of Houdini, maybe, in their shining glory.
Yeah,
there probably are some already too.
Yeah, there's this one girl who does.
I just don't look for it.
I think she has like a boathouse tutorial that's in like 4 different parts. That's really popular, but it's cool because like. It seems like more and more independent people are starting their things up. It's like, well, I mean, this is the first episode of this podcast, but also you, Charlie, like you're going to do some tutorials soon, right?
I am, yeah. I just got that mic that I said I ordered.
Yeah.
It's working great so far.
Oh my god. I'm going to die.
You just got to figure it out.
Yeah, I also just have started like writing it because like I'm basically like just making a skeleton. Because like there's a lot I have to say, and I'm really bad at articulating my thoughts without rambling. So I think I just need to get to that point where like, okay, these need to be concise, and people can like get through them. Because the thing with tutorials is like PDFs, I think, are really hard to follow visually. Mm-hmm. Like I think a lot of people like PDFs because you can like you don't have to pause and search through the video. But man. For Substance Designer, I hate PDFs. There's so many where the graph just gets tangled and I don't know where anything goes. And I think I'm a better step-by-step type of guy where when someone kind of like talks through like what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. They both have their pros and they both have their cons for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of funny we got on this topic because like over where we are, like Ryan and I, like we're always trying to find good foliage tutorials, and there's like so little out there. But one of them is that that PDF. The guy's name slips my mind right now. Yeah, the guy that you're working with right now.
Yeah, he sits on the other side of the room for me.
Yeah, like it's such a good like breakdown of everything, but it's just something about watching someone actually being able to go through it that just kind of makes all the difference.
Yeah. I definitely think that's definitely one that I've seen. He talked to me about that the other day about like when I was telling him I was going to write tutorials, just having like that there. Tutorials are like really cool. I think like it's a pet peeve of mine. It's kind of weird because like you like tutorials and you like making tutorials and you like giving them to people to learn. But I don't like seeing people personally like post tutorial work that they've done like on their portfolios.
Like as a blog post, it's okay though.
Yeah, blog post, I think it's great. I have one. I have one of really far back in my blog. I did one of Daniel Tiger's and I posted it on my blog. But like I didn't post it on my ArtStation because that's not representative of my work. That's representative of Daniel Tiger's work that I just copied.
Oh, you're talking about like when you use someone's tutorial.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm an offender of this. My radio on my portfolio is from a tutorial, but I'm glad to report that today I'm starting to fix that. I'm like turning it into a small diorama because I get this like all the time. You're totally right. I completely agree with you because it's like if you search radio on ArtStation, you'll see 80 versions of the exact same post I made.
Yeah.
Which you can't really have going on. It totally isn't your work. Like my radio is Simon Futch's radio.
Okay.
Yeah, but like, add some other stuff. I think as long as you can take what you learned, you can use the same thing, but apply it to something else and make your own little twist on it. And then it's all yours. Like you can credit the dude in the credits and all that. But yeah, like a direct rip is not, it's not your work.
Basically, like, I mean, because I think for like designer, there's like workflows that like everyone blurred it and ran it through a histogram scan, you get a rounded cube. Like no matter like everyone uses that, everyone can get a different result. But like by kit bashing those techniques together from different tutorials, you can get your own results. And it's still I find like I feel like it's mine. Like I looked through like a ton of brick tutorials before I did mine. And then, like, mine, like, when I looked back at my graph, it was so different than all these other tutorials that I was doing because I was just using the logic more so. I think that's kind of why I like materials and specifically Substance Designer so much is I love, like, the logic and the thought that goes into building them. And I feel like that's more what tutorials are all about getting across is you're solving problems with nodes to make art. You're not just supposed to be like copying like what they do. Like the reason nodes, like the people who make these tutorials think of every decision by like, trial and error. I have a ton of materials that I like have in a folder that just didn't work. That I just decided, hey, I can come back to these like another day or another year. It took me forever to put bricks in my portfolio. I didn't want them on my portfolio. Seeing bricks on ArtStation every day. Like, even if they were really good, like, they have to be really good for me to, like, pay attention to them. And not this, there's nothing wrong with doing bricks, obviously, because, like, I did bricks. I did it begrudgingly at first, but actually, ironically, they're banner now, and I think they're one of my best materials. But, like, you want to, like, find a way to, like, keep it your work. Like, someone should look at someone's, like, piece of art and be like, wow, they did like this material done by X person, et cetera, et cetera. Like I want someone to like look at a material and without my, I don't want to like make a tutorial. I want like, it's cool for me to see someone like who follows tutorials when I eventually like post it, be like, wow, that's cool. They thought that like this was good enough to post. But in my head, I also think like, hey, did you actually learn something from it? You followed it, yeah, and say it was helpful. But like, how will you take that knowledge that I've implanted in you and use it in your own projects, right? Because that's what I did with all the tutorials I followed from Lynch, from Tiger, from Javier Perez, from the Substance YouTube, et cetera, from the Substance Masters. I like poured over so many. I can't even remember them all. But like, none of my materials look like any of these people's. Like that's just kind of how it is. Like you just learn these different techniques and then you make up your own. Usually what I think, and I usually do fail at this, but I'm keeping a conscious effort of it. How can I get the same result in a different way from this person that showed something in a tutorial? And I think that's what helps like level up your skill in this program, Because like if you get better, if you're actively like for different solutions, your mind is just naturally going to expand at like a faster rate because you're just going to be thinking more about like what you're doing and not just kind of blindly copy pasting. And I just want to make it clear, like I have nothing against tutorials at all because I use them, other people use them. But I do think that like when you post it on like your portfolio, that you're not showing like what you're fully capable of. And you can always do better than that. Because at the end of the day, too, usually the person that made the tutorial is going to have the best version.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously, like, and if yours is better, you probably added a to it that made it like go above that, like Daniel Tiger's Desert Bedrock. If you add like ants to it, I don't know, or if you had like maybe a sand pool that leads to like a bunch of like I don't know, like sport, like a hole with like maybe some like porous rock showing through, or maybe more erosion or whatever. But you're using it as a base to like expand your own skills. Then it's fine. Like, oh, cool, you decided like to add your own little spin to it, So
yeah, I think that's exactly like what you should be doing. Like back to the radio tutorial I was talking about. Like there are a couple out there where you can tell that like the core of it is the exact same, but they maybe change the way that the actual like phone looks or the button layout or something about the grips are totally different. And those are the ones that pop and really stand out. And you can tell like, hey, you can actually credit this person for the stuff that they did because it's their own thing. They're not just cutting and pasting. But anyways, can we get like a little sneak peek as to what you're going to be making some tutorials on? Like I meant to ask before, but I'm just kind of curious overall.
Yeah, like just the one I'm making. I was just asking, like, hey, what do you guys want to see? It'll be for free, by the way. This first one, just a bunch of like notes that I like.
You cut it right as soon as you said what it was.
God dang it! It's probably just going to be a bunch of notes and just like what I use them for. Because I think a lot of people like it's hard to know the logic when you don't know like what to use. That I don't fault people for. You should know, like you should learn what all the nodes do, and obviously the best way is just by trial and error. But I'll just tell them like about what all like the histograms do and et cetera, how to get like certain kinds of shapes and whatnot. I'm constantly thinking in my head like how can I be different than like what's out there. What's something that hasn't really been explained before, in great detail, et cetera, et cetera. That's always how I've worked too. But I should be applying that logic to make something like unique that people will find useful. Because that's why I wrote the article. I wrote the article because I wanted people to find like it useful, that kind of stuff. It should be a reason. Like all art is a resource,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like what I'm looking to achieve with this line of tutorials. I don't actually know how many like material breakdowns. More like the mechanics are like interesting. I think that's my inner game designer talking from when I wanted to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean that sounds super useful for me because like I've dabbled with Designer a little bit, and obviously it's not my go-to thing or anything like that, but one of the biggest issues when you're learning this kind of stuff is like not knowing what you don't know, if that makes sense. So like a breakdown of a lot of the most useful nodes would definitely go a super long way for me personally. I don't know for anyone else who's starting out, like it would probably help them out a ton as well.
Yeah, well, even if you don't, I do think it's useful. I think a lot of people like use, but don't know like why they're adjusting the slider. Sometimes, like I do think people, including myself, this was of course me, by the way, too. When you're using a node, you're just kind of like gets you the result you want. You don't actually know why you're doing. For example, like I'm not like a traditional artist, so like I didn't know like much at all until like I like started using this because like histograms like now I feel like because it's a pretty basic part of texturing, knowing how like levels work, but this is again like part of the learning curve. Like we're still always like learning these new things, but like learning how blacks and whites, I just said that word so many times in the last 5 seconds, how the blacks and the whites like clamp to get these different grayscale values, and how many nodes that actually like is applicable to in Designer is like a ton. And before I was just adjusting sliders because they were making my shapes look right. I didn't actually know why they were doing like it that way. When I was in school, I remember it took me 2 months when I was a sophomore to remember that black is the glossiest part of the roughness and that white is the most matte. It took me forever when I was in school to like remember that. I was just like, oh, which one is it again? I don't remember.
We've all been there, man. Don't worry.
God. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like Ryan, you watch way more material tutorials than I do. Is there anything specifically that you're looking for, or things that you find extra useful?
I honestly think exactly what Charlie's looking to do would be really helpful for a lot of people. Like, for example, I watch a lot of the tutorials, but it's usually just following along with their workflow. I want to know how to create like my own workflows working with all these node introductions that you will be doing. Like, knowing how to get from point A to point B rather than just straight from point A to point Z. I'm Canadian. It's Z, not Z.
That's okay.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be really helpful for a lot of people, and I haven't heard of anyone doing it. I'm sure there has been someone doing it because everyone's doing everything's been done by at least someone right now.
Yeah. That was actually one good piece of advice the professor gave me. He said, everything's been... Don't worry too much about, like, trying to, like, make something original. That just will kind of happen.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it will be a very helpful tutorial that you do. And I am really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Sweet. We'll be sharing it around. We'll have it in the description if it's out by the time this thing's up, or even afterwards. Is there like an estimated time window for that?
No.
It's just coming eventually?
It'll be here in the next 20 years.
Dude, sometimes I'd go like day. So it's my productivity fluctuates sometimes. I'll say I'm busy and then I'll be asleep.
How much do you work like when you're actually home?
Since I started at Naughty Dog?
Yeah.
I knocked out that fabric I did in like 2-3 days, but so probably like 4 or 5 hours slow. So I don't know, not much I'd say since I got this job, just because of like adjusting to like moving. Because I'm from Chicago, like I said, and that's like halfway across the country. And then also living by myself and also having to do dishes and having to do laundry, like, you know, like just like in college, you know, I did all this.
Oh, okay.
But like when I'm all by myself now and I have to like, you know, keep this place spick and span, but I'm not going to class for 2 hours. I'm going to a job for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm a lot more exhausted. You know, basically just adulting things. I'm only 23, so like, you know. I'm like
only
a baby.
Been adulting for 5 years.
No, technically 2. Okay, I count adulting. I count adulting very differently than you.
We've got adult supervision now.
God forbid.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. You'll be looking over us now, right?
No. We have supervision.
I'm not super. That's for sure.
Well, once you become an adult, you get the supervision. Right? That's what it is?
Is that how it works?
Are you guys really taking this long to catch on to my awful point?
I get... Okay, it took me a little bit long to get onto that, but I'm catching on now.
I'm lost.
I think I should...
This is great.
I think I should just give up on my career to become an environment artist and go be a comedian. How about that? How does that sound?
For everyone who's listening this deep into the podcast, this is a special reward for making it this far. Thank you.
Yeah, you just get to hear us blindly talk about
nothing.
Charlie, you keep cutting out, man.
Oh god. It's just being an adult sucks.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, one of the things I wanted to ask, because I guess we'll probably be wrapping this up in the next little bit. This was more of like a personal question I had, but I'm sure a lot of other people could probably get use out of it as well. Like, the first, say, like, week or two, once you get to the studio, like, I'm sure I think you brought it up a little bit, like your mind is totally scrambled and you're not exactly sure what you're supposed to be doing. Obviously they have things prepared for you, but like what is that whole process like from like your first day to actually getting used to stuff?
Well, my lead was also sick for the first 2.5.
Oh yeah.
So that no, we have a few, so just other ones. But this lead was supposed to be my supervisor, so I was like, oh, is this who I'm supposed to be reporting to? I found out now, like, it didn't actually matter, but like, I don't know. I just basically spent the days like reading documents, and just once you actually start doing work, then you just kind of like start to like get into a workflow. So I don't know. It already feels so natural. I noted that with some of my coworkers today. I went out with our newest coworker for lunch and some of my other coworkers, and I was just telling her like, hey, like it already feels supernatural for me. So like in a few days, you'll feel it too. It's because you're doing like what you already love. Like for example, Dylan, you make props and environments, and guess what you're gonna do when you're in the studio? The only difference is you have to learn like all about the version control that your studio is using, and like about like just how all the files are stored and how not to accidentally delete the whole game library.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty important part. I'll be sure to take
take notes,
there.
Extra notes.
Totally.
No, but yeah, like there's still a lot that I don't know. Only been there a month, and like I'm on until the project ends, and then I don't know like what happens after that. But like who knows? So if not, I have to go. I'll just keep learning, and we're all learning. I think like school, like obviously I'm gonna be a broken record. School is what you make of it. You can be at like the crappiest like art school or like even community college program ever and still get a job in the industry. Degrees only matter. I will like say this like opinionated, arrogant like fact. Like degrees do not matter in the industry unless you are international and need to like travel to get like a job because you'll need a degree. But you don't need to have a game design or art degree. I mean, you can have like a regular college degree in like computer science or English or like whatever. Still work in the game industry because you have a dope portfolio and like games and aren't a jerk.
Yeah, like the whole school topic is like a very, very difficult one to talk about. I plan on talking about it like a lot more on my channel, and I think the next podcast we're doing is going to be more focused on that. Like Ryan and I, we've gone over this like a million times, like our thoughts on the school system in general, and like we give it a lot of I don't know. We give it a bad time sometimes, but at the end of the day, like there's a lot of things that have been incredibly beneficial for us at the same time. I don't know. It is difficult though. I just kind of wanted to bring up because I know a lot of people ask me all the time. It's like, do you recommend it? Do you not recommend it? I thought I'd pass it off to you for now. Your overall, if you had to sum it up into, is it something you would recommend people to do?
Well, in my case, yes, because yes and no, because Scouts really expensive. Yeah. I got by on like scholarships being fortunate. Also, living off campus is cheaper, and like various other things. So, like, if that isn't a problem, the school is like really, really, really connected in the game industry. I found because like when I was looking, I realized like I was talking to one of my friends who is going to I think Columbus. And she was like, yeah, not many people like are in the industry. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's not always an option to network in your school. And I had that safety net after college because I went to this university. And I didn't even like realize that until I just went because when my mom was like looking at schools, she just gave me a bunch of schools that had like good programs. And then we visited all of them and I just picked the one I liked the most because I got into all of them somehow with my crappy grades. I just figure it's because like I had like a little art portfolio because I took 3D animation in high school, and I had like projects that I did during my summers that I didn't had those. They were like, oh, technical like stuff like that. And that probably helped a lot because I realized now like is a lot for someone coming out of like high school, going into university. Shows like early onset passion. I don't know like how it works. Schools are weird, man, but I definitely, like, in my case, would do a school with connections. But, like, as for the actual program, the the program is fine, but every program is you're like a good artist or you just are passionate and want to do it. Because the people that want to do it are going to succeed. Like if a student is going to GDC, they're serious. One, that's expensive, and two, that's initiative. So I like think that's already like, you know, a fine step. So I recommend art school to the people that like, you know, one can like think that they won't be in debt for the rest of their life. You absolutely do not need to do that to yourself. It's true though. Like there's so many people that will put themselves in debt for the rest of their life just to like get a crack at this already oversaturated and incredibly like competitive industry. You know, it's a lot. So, you know, my life situation was fortunate enough to give me like, you know, cushion. But not everyone has that. So I can't just like arrogantly say, oh yeah, go to art. Like it's not like it costs like a ton of money and that your time maybe will be even wasted. And you'll just think like, oh, I'm going to this really expensive school and I'm coming out, I can get a job. No, you also have to, you know, put in the time like we've been talking about and, you know, socialize and, you know, show like that you're passionate. Like you can say like you love games, but not, you know, maybe you don't want to make games. Maybe like, and unfortunately, like some people just maybe realize that late. I was doubting. I was always so afraid of that. I talked to one of my good friends like junior year when I was transitioning to art, and I told her like, "Oh my God, I'm freaking out. Like, Kayla, like, what am I doing? Like, I don't really want to make games." And just like the fact that you're worried about that is proof that you want to make games because you're not one of the people that just wants to play them. You want to create something cool. Shout out to Kayla. That was great. that kept me sane for the next 2 years. So you're the best. So yeah, that's definitely, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely like a super situational thing, but I think you did a pretty good job breaking it down for sure. It's different, of course, like depending on where you are. Because I know in Canada, like it's similar enough, but I know the financial risk isn't nearly as bad.
Yeah.
States, it's insane over there. I don't know what you guys are doing, but
neither do I. I don't think anyone does.
I mean, the guy getting the check does, but
disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, anyways, I think I'm going to pass it over to Ryan. Ryan, if you have any like last minute questions, I think I've gone through everything I've, you know, been planning to chat about. Is there anything you want to bring up?
Actually, here's a good one. Out of all of your, I guess, mentors, not necessarily mentors, but people you look up to in like the game art community or just the substance designer community, who would you say that has had the biggest impact on your career so far?
Impact?
Yeah.
Well, man, there's a lot. So, because I've interacted with, because the thing is, like, some of these people that I like look up to like heavily, I actually have interacted. Man, I don't like leaving people out though. There's so many.
All right, well, I guess then we can just bring that into an easy transition for shoutouts, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess for one, Daniel Tiger, because we've never met. I think we've conversed one time on Twitter, where he congratulated me for getting a job because I shouted him out on Twitter. Now. Yeah, no, thank you for giving the talk that did change my life and making great art and making great resources that helped me become a decent artist. Josh Lynch, same reason. Rogelio Olgun, same reason. Javier Perez, Vincent Drozer. I think that's how you say it. I probably completely butchered that because I'm really bad. And I'm going to butcher Jonathan Benias as well. Thank you for talking to me at GDC this year, by the way, man. Both of you and Javier. They all gave me some really good advice at GDC. And the whole algorithmic team, algorithmic. And some people I've always called it algorithmic. And then when I was there, some of them called it algorithmic. And then I freaked out because and I didn't know. Is
it not algorithmic?
Some of their employees were saying
I say algorithmic.
See? Oh
or
my God,
algorithmic, or
Okay, well, everyone who works there for making awesome. All my professors and teachers at SCAD, Cyril especially, if you're the best and push me a lot. Everyone, Daniel Brown, my mentor, Ryan Benno, my other mentor, and everyone else who's been really cool and like nice to me. Like I have like a long list. I've been trying really hard to like not like spasm with just all these people that have helped me, but like really like so many people have helped me, and I like can't express it enough. And of course, biggest shout outs to my mom who's no longer with me, and my father for supporting me all this time. You guys are the best, and the rest of my family. So yeah, I think that's like everyone really, and of course, big shout outs to Dylan and Ryan for having me on, even though my mic was cruddy and cut out a bunch.
It
like
just
I
cut out
thought
as soon as you said that.
God damn
It's a small random, like, you'll lose syllables, sometimes words, and then the odd time you'll lose like half a sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
and
It's a first episode.
It's
I
like
did think
reading
of
a
one.
book. It's like reading a book where ink is splotched on like every now and then's word.
It's like, do you remember old like elementary school like overhead projectors?
Oh God! the
Oh
ones-
yes,
Yes.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's audio format. So I hope
God.
everyone who's listening
With scans.
can fill in the lines.
One more shout out to Nintendo because I played Paper Mario 1000 game and that made me want to make games. So I love it because I love that game so much. Best game
Still haven't
ever.
played it, man. I'll get to it. Just for
That's the best game ever. I absolutely adore it.
it's the GameCube one, right?
Yeah, the best game ever. Best RPG and cool, very interesting art. So bring that back, Nintendo.
I'm sure they're listening right now. Okay.
I'm sure.
All right.
God.
Well, I mean, I guess with that, thank you everyone for listening to the first episode of the Pixel Pusher podcast. That's gonna be a tongue twister by the end of the night. Thank you so much, Charlie, for coming on. Thank you, Ryan, for joining, of course.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. We're going to try and do one of these at least bi-weekly, maybe weekly if we can get it going. But let us know what you're thinking in the comments. Did this go good? Is there anything you want us to cover specifically? But other than that, if you've made it this far into the podcast, guys, thank you so much for listening. And hope you guys have a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever's going on. Anything you guys want to say before we turn this off?
I love game art.
There you go.
Thank you for watching, guys. Or listening.
Beautiful.
Right, listening.
Yes, listening. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Have a great night. What if it's the day for them, though?
Did you